oversized Hufflepuff pyjamas because they didn't have any in my size. So instead I got the Primark's weird sizings, medium, and the result of the medium is this like giant oversized look, but I thought it would be really nice for summer. So, and the shorts are even bigger, so I'm currently wearing leggings. Anyway, this video isn't even actually really related to Harry Potter, but it's actually related to something that I've talked about before. It's related to my autism diagnosis journey. So basically, this video is going to be very unplanned, probably quite long, quite rambly, so if you can't be bothered to listen to me rambling on, then just exit now, because, yeah. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to like separate it into segments. I'm going to talk about my lead up to my journey, like how I thought I was autistic, why I thought I was autistic, what helped me think I was autistic, what helped me research into it. Then I'm going to go into the actual bit where I like actually started doing something about it and trying to actually get the diagnosis, and then I'm going to move on to the actual diagnosis assessment. So, to start with, basically I've been looking like back at kind of tweets and stuff, and it pretty much started in 2017, so nearly 3 years ago. I think really it kind of began like by accident, if that makes sense. So one of the first times I ever remember it was I was writing a fanfic, and I was writing a fanfic about an autistic character, and a mixture of why I did this is because one, I had a friend at the time who had autistic family members, and we were kind of just talking about it and discussing it, and I just ended up writing an autistic character, like, yeah. But while I was writing him, it's like I understood him, and yeah, that's one of the things. And then also, apart from like writing it in fics and stuff like that, I began talking to her, and we talk about things like sensory processing disorder and that. And while we were discussing that, I thought, yeah, like, that makes sense to me. Like, maybe I have that. So yeah, that's where it kind of began, in writing / a little image in the back of my head kind of thing. But the reason that I didn't really think I was autistic at first was because pretty much all I knew about it was what you see on TV and what you hear about rarely out and about. So my first kind of picture of autism was, it's a boy thing. It's the very, obviously I'm not saying that people aren't like this, like the very stereotypical image of autism, like the trains, obsessions, the boys not talking at all, or being very socially awkward and hating people and being really rude by accident. Obviously, some people are like that, and I'm not saying that they're not, but I'm just saying that's all I knew about it, and I only knew the stereotypical version. So that's why I hadn't given it a second thought, because, you know, that's nothing like me. So yeah, that was the beginning of it. And then there was also a few things to do with TV shows, and I watched Hannibal in probably 2018, 2017 I think, and Will Graham. I recently found out he's not autistic when Hugh Dancy was interviewed, so I was like, oh, but he's got like autistic traits, and one of the things, there was a scene where they talked about eye contact, and that scene I was like, same. So that was another thing. Like, one of the main things I've always resonated with was the eye contact thing. But that was the only main thing, because I was like, well, I can't be autistic because just because I don't want to look people in the eye, like that's it. That's the only thing that I have. Maybe it's just a shy thing. So that was the one main thing. And then it kind of moved on to 2018 when I started to research into it more, and I met autistic people on Twitter, and we would talk about it. And it was a mixture between meeting those people and talking about it, and obviously doing the extra research, when I really started to think, wait, like, this makes too much sense. Like, they can't, alright, one thing, sure, a coincidence, but everything that I had started adding together, like, how can that be a coincidence? So, yeah, I started researching into autism in girls, autism in females, and as I was reading, like, all the different things, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like, that literally, like, I relate to that so much. So yeah, it was like that 2018 where I really started like meeting people and being like, discussing my traits, and they discuss their traits back to me, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I get that too, and they'd be like, oh yeah, like I get this, do you get this? And it would kind of just be like conferring stuff, which really helped. And then also, apart from that, the research, and I was going to say a few things that I researched into that really made it like stand out for me. one of them was saying that autism in girls gets missed a lot because autism in girls is more seen, like misdiagnosed or misseen as like shyness and anxiety, which obviously anxiety, OCD and all that are co-occurring conditions with autism. And personally I have OCD and anxiety as well, and I also like saw, when I was younger, I saw a therapist like once I think, because I was getting really bad separation anxiety, and that was another thing where I found out, in like, obviously it's not for everyone gets that, but autism in females often can present itself like that. And it was saying stuff like, just as an example, something that I found on a list, like in primary school she was kind of like babied and people would like baby her and be the mother to her, but then when she moves on to high school she got bullied, and girls with autism, they still want to fit in, so they mirror other people and they take things and they watch and they take things from other people and make that into themselves, and they mask so well that nobody knows they are autistic, so they just get misdiagnosed for years. And personally, like, obviously going through high school to college to getting a job, I would sort of, at first I'd be really nervous and really shy, but now I have got so much better in that aspect. But not to go too much off topic, like, I would just kind of, yeah, like, not just copy other people, but I don't want to like push things onto myself, because a lot of like the denial I've always had is like, do I do that? Like, have I copied other people? But then I think about it, and I feel like, yeah, I mirror people kind of, and that just, yeah, is one of the masking things, and it really helps like girls who are autistic to fit in and try and like make friends and stuff. So obviously I did have friends in primary school and I had friends in high school, but a lot of the time, like, making some of the friends kind of just to fit in, like, I don't want to say pretending to like people because that's really mean, but like, obviously, yeah, like I'd say probably have better friends in primary school. Yeah, that's one of the things. Anyway, not to go too much off topic, like I said I was going to ramble. Also, another thing which I at first didn't think I had, but then it's like hyperfixations and obsessions and special interests. In boys, it's usually, it can be like usually different. It's like more like things like the train thing, like, I don't know, for example, nature, like maths or whatever. But in girls, it's often things like creative writing, TV shows and films, like arty kind of like things. And I mean, if you look around my room, you will see that I have had a few hyperfixations. I'd say my most recent one was Fantastic Beasts. It's died down a little bit now, but just an example of how I kind of hyperfixate. If I find something that I really like, so I'd say it was Marvel, and it's still Marvel but lesser. So when it was first Marvel, like, I'd buy all the merch, like, I'd watch the stuff over and over again, like, I'll go on YouTube and I'll find all the interviews and everything like that. Like, recently, obviously Fantastic Beasts, I'd watch the film over and over, I talk about it like all the time, and everyone's like, we don't care, Sam. And yeah, that's how I kind of hyperfixate. Like, recently I found a TV show that I really liked and an actor in it that I really like, so I'm like on YouTube, like, searching his name, watching all the interviews, like all that stuff. And also Fantastic Beasts, like writing the fics, I do like RP on Twitter, all that kind of thing. That's how my hyperfixations manifest. Obviously everyone's different, like, yeah. So yeah, that was another thing, the special interests. And when I found out that in girls, it was that kind of side of things, that how their hyperfixations and their special interests kind of are, I was like, sorry, I heard a weird noise. I was like, yeah, like, that makes sense to me. And the last thing, obviously, that was one of the main things that I related to was obviously the eye contact thing. Like, now I'm so much better at it because I've basically taught myself and forced myself to do it. But from probably as early as I can remember to probably the age, at least 17, 18, about 18 maybe, like, I would not look anyone in the eye. The only people that I could look in the eye was my mum, my dad and my sister. Like, I couldn't look friends in the eye, I couldn't really look immediate family in the eye, I definitely couldn't look like medical professionals in the eye. Yeah, I just couldn't do it. I don't even know, like, it's really hard to explain. It's just something that I don't like doing. Like, I know people have explained it before that it's too distracting and they can't really hear what people are saying if they're focusing too much on eye contact, but it's just something that I've never wanted to do. And like I remember just one specific example when I went to meet my kidney transplant surgeon. I just remember my mum and dad being like, look him in the eye, and I'm like, okay, like I've just never seen. I get it, like I get it. It's a sign of like showing you're listening and a sign of like respect. But I personally obviously don't get it at the same time because I don't like doing it. And yeah, once I got my first job, I was so much better at it because the more I talked to people, the more I learned to do it and like basically forced myself to do it. And now I'm a lot better at it in that if I meet a new person, I'm really hesitant with the eye contact for the first maybe like day or so. But then if I get comfortable with them, then I will do eye contact. And I also, usually when I go see doctors, I'm not too bad at it. It really depends if I'm comfortable with the person, like when I first meet them. So yeah, I am a lot better at that now, obviously. But yeah, that's another one of the things. So now I'm going to move on to what happened next with the diagnosis thing. It was about August 2018 that I contacted my GP. I was like, right, okay, I've done loads of research into it. I've talked to multiple people. Like, this can't be a coincidence. I want to find out why I felt like this, so different, and like struggle so much in my life. I want to know. So I sound really posh then. I basically contacted them. They have an online thing, which is so good because I don't really like phone calls. So I typed in the box. I was like, autism/Asperger's diagnosis assessment thing. Went to the GP. She was like, okay, so I've downloaded the form that we're going to fill in, like this, and a lot of the questions were based on like this stereotypical form of autism with like the special interest thing. When I told her about my TBH and BBH, she was like, that doesn't really sound like a special interest. So I just really think that a lot of medical professionals aren't very educated on it. Like they're only kind of educated on like a box, like this is a box, that's with autism, and then all the stereotypical things that you think of is in the box, and that's what they think of. But basically, I told her about like all the things that I actually wrote a list of why I thought I was autistic, but I didn't read it to her because I'm stupid and I kind of was anxious. But I basically told her all of that stuff. Also talked about stimming, which I'm just going to quickly say about. I don't do it like very dramatically and really obviously, but just some of the examples that I'll say is pretty much like fidgeting with the hands. Like when I'm out, I'll grind my teeth. It just keeps me like calm, and it's just something that I do to like bounce my leg, or like, yeah, it's just something that calms me down, like just makes me chill. So yeah, that's another thing I talked about. And then she's like, okay, I'll send this off and blah blah. I can't remember how long it took. Let's just say 2 weeks. I got a letter in the post being like, we received your form and we'd like you to fill these forms in because we think you might need an assessment. So the next forms, also again the questions were quite strange. Like there was a question like, did you used to cut worms up as a child? No, I didn't. But anyway, yeah, and then I filled that in. It was like to do eye contact and all that lot, and yeah, and then my dad filled one bit in. I probably should have given it to my mum because obviously like my dad was working more than my mum when I was younger because of my other condition, cystinosis. My mum was my full-time carer, and my sister's full-time carer, so she didn't work until I was like 18. But I got my dad to fill it in because he was like, oh yeah, I'll fill it in. So yeah, he filled his bit in, I filled my bit in, I sent it off, and honestly, I can't remember how long it took. So I really can't remember. Probably a few weeks, maybe in a month, I'm not really sure. But I think I got an email, and they were basically like, thanks for your form, you're going to be in a waiting list now, it's going to take 2 to 3 years. If your circumstances change, please contact us. And I was like, I don't want to wait 2 to 3 years for this. I didn't expect it to be that long, but I guess it's very limited services, and I'm not a child, so yeah. Basically, yeah, then time goes on, blah blah, and get to January 2019, and I have a college interview. So I go to college interview, my camera's well glitched. I go to the college interview, I get an unconditional offer. It was for photography, film and media, which is something that I pretty much been interested in all my life. I was changing my career completely. I used to work at a nursery, and I was like, you know what, I'm not feeling it anymore. I want to go into this creative industry, like to do my special interests and everything that I love. I don't know why it took me like freaking 6 years to figure that out, but there we go. So yeah, I went to the interview, got accepted, a few months passed, and I'm like, I wonder if I email them, they'll give me an earlier assessment, because I might struggle at college, I might not, I probably won't, but it would be really good for the college to know. So I emailed them, they were like, oh yeah, we'll get you an earlier assessment, like before you go to college. I was like, oh, like wow. So it did take quite a while because, I'm not faulting the doctor because she was literally so nice, but she was just deciding her annual leave for a few months, so it took quite a while, but that's just, I think it was about July, June-ish time, about July, that I got the letter through for the appointment. They did change it once, but it ended up being in August of 2019. Did it? Yes, it did. So, basically a year later of my initial GP appointment, I went to the assessment. I was super insanely nervous, like I felt so sick, and oh my god. But yeah, I went to the assessment. It was like at this little hospital, and my dad came with me, and basically it took a long time. Like, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened in it, but the woman was so nice, like literally so nice. We talked a bit about, like, first of all, I said why, like, I wanted the diagnosis if I did have autism, and I also just want to say disclaimer, I know that some people don't like it when you say have autism. I say I'm autistic instead, but it just kind of like comes out, and I'm sorry, like I don't want to offend anyone, because I know a lot of people prefer saying like I'm autistic, not I have autism. Someone's looking out the window. But I just say both. Look, it's not, I'm not trying to be mean or offend anyone or anything, but it's like with cystinosis, I don't say I'm a cystagnostic, I just find it easier to say I have cystinosis, so it's just something that I find easier to say. Like, please don't be offended. Okay. Stop looking at the window, for sake. So, yeah. Anyway, carrying on. Then, I got to the assessment, she gave my dad a form to fill in, and I'll talk a bit more about that later, but basically, yeah, we talked about why, like, I think I'm autistic, stuff like that. She asked me questions. She also gave me, like, a little mini task to do. I had to tell a story with objects to see if I could make the objects into things that they weren't. For example, I think I used, like, a brick as a bed, but some autistic people might be very, very, very literal. They're like, that is a brick, that's not a bed, kind of thing. But I passed that test, so to speak. I had to read a story from a book with no words. I found that quite awkward though, because I do have a good imagination, but being in front of someone that I don't know telling a story was awkward for me, and she picked up on the fact that I didn't really talk about the facial expressions in the story, but I also just, yeah, I just really kind of felt awkward about it, but yeah. And then I had to also look at this picture. It was like a picture of a holiday, and I had to talk about like the big picture and the little picture, like what I saw, what was going on in it. And I'll just say two other things she said to me at the end as well. She said I speak very fast, as you probably already know because you've watched my videos or you're watching this video, which obviously she said like can be a trait, like might not be, but can. And when I talk, I don't usually change my facial expression, which I didn't even like ever realise that, so I was like, okay, weird. But she was like, yeah, that's kind of the thing as well, that you kind of have like this one facial expression when you talk, and you talk really fast. And I've had so many, like, I don't think she said it, but I also really struggle with the volume of my voice. It's a mixture of like, I think it's a mixture of just, in my head, I think things get, like, when the sensory things go on, things get really loud, and I start shouting louder and louder to try and get over the noise. But the noise isn't really there, like, it's all just kind of building up in my head. But also, like, my dad is kind of hard of hearing, so I think a lot of the time I shout at him, and it's a mixture of those two things. Plus, obviously, I used to work in the nursery, and I was, like, obviously always raising my voice over the noise, the actual noise. So it's just a mixture of things, but that's something I find really awkward because it, like, annoys people, and I feel so embarrassed, but that's one of the things. And the talking fast thing as well. People have picked up on before and been like, slow down, and I'm like, but I can't, this is how I talk. So yeah, that's some of the things she told me. And basically, well, we're in there for 2 hours, like, it was probably even a little tiny bit over that, but that was like, yeah, it was a long time. But she was so nice, like, I felt really comfortable with her. She was literally super nice. And then, yeah, that was August. Fast forward to time, blah, blah, blah. I did keep chasing them up with email, because honestly, I thought it wouldn't take that long. I mean, I was being kind of, like, naive, because, I mean, it's going to take a while, but eventually, basically, I think I emailed them again in December, because I was like, oh, it's been, like, September, 4 months. I feel like I should have it now. Obviously, I'd already started college, and I hadn't got the assessment back yet, so I was like, you know, I'm at college now, I'd really like to know, basically, but I do feel like she also had her annual leave for, like, a month, so obviously she couldn't do it then. But eventually, fast forward to, like, the 24th of December 2019. I got an email at like midnight, 10 to midnight on the 23rd, and I was like, oh my god, why you emailed me this late? And basically she was like, I'm really, really sorry for the wait, would you like your report via email, because I'm going out of office and I won't be able to send it till January. So I was like, yes, please send it. And yeah, I woke up on the morning of Christmas Eve, I got the email, but it was encrypted and it took me like an hour or 2 hours to work out how to save the document, because I had to download this PDF reader, and then I tried to open it, but it wasn't it wouldn't open in PDF reader, so I had to open it in like a Word app, and then I had to copy and paste it because there was all these weird symbols, and I was like, what's going on? But basically, the end of the story is I am autistic, and yeah, I don't have the letter at hand now because I'm using my phone to record via my camera, but I'm just going to give a little rundown of the letter. It basically said, I can't remember what the thing's called, DMI-5, the DMI-5 diagnosis tool that she would diagnose me with autism spectrum disorder level 1. There's 3 levels obviously, 1 being the most mild and 3 being the most moderate. 3 being the most severe, I don't know what the other word is. And level 1 also used to be called Asperger's, but they don't use Asperger's as a diagnosis anymore. It's kind of like pushing that out of the diagnosis criteria. But yeah, she said in the letter basically my lack of imagination when reading the story. She said about, honestly I can't remember everything she said, but about like all the things that I said, and she said based on my information and my parents' information, because what my dad put in his form wasn't enough, so she ended up being on the phone to my mum for like over an hour, and I was really happy that she said based on my parents' information, because my parents obviously, like, they weren't convinced and they weren't really sure when I said I wanted this diagnosis, because, I mean, they've known me my whole life, and obviously they're like you're not autistic, like how, kind of thing. Like, I understand why they didn't really believe it at first, because like why would they have any, you know, like knowing me for 23 years and not knowing that I was autistic, why now would they suddenly think I was autistic, if that makes sense? So yeah, but I was glad that she said, oh, with my parents' information as well, because I was kind of like worried that my parents were gonna say that they didn't think I was autistic and that was gonna come through in the diagnosis. But yeah, so anyway, yeah, she wrote all about that, and she said that basically, you know, autism is a good thing still, because like I can be the person that people trust, and I can be the person that has all the information on my special interest, that people will come to me and ask me about it. And yeah, she basically wrote some really nice things in there, and I'm not obviously going to read them all out now because I don't have a letter at hand, but the diagnosis was autism level 1. So I did get diagnosed as autistic, and that was my autism diagnosis journey. And if you have any more questions, please comment them. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And yeah, subscribe for more content. I talk about my other medical condition. I also wonder if I'm the only person in the world who's autistic with cystinosis, but I'm not sure. So yeah, I talk about my other chronic condition, cystinosis. I talk about my kidney transplant on my channel. I talk about my special interests, my college course, and I will be doing more videos now on how I cope with being autistic, and probably how my diagnosis is going to be helping me out in 2020, because I basically I ended the year finding out, so now it's like a whole new year of me trying to kind of like embrace it, and yeah, I just want to kind of be an advocate and help everyone and yeah, all that malarkey. But yeah, comment below if you have any specific questions about the diagnosis or the diagnosis process, etc. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you to everyone who's been so supportive of me, to everyone who helped me, like anyone who gave me information on autism when I asked, and everyone who's just been there every step of the way and every step after my diagnosis. And my diagnosis doesn't change me. It just gives me basically the tools to help myself become a better person in 2020, and it gives me answers. And I was just recording and it stopped recording, I think, because it was recording so long. So yeah, anyway, thank you guys for watching. See you in the next video.